Most
yeah.
of them are autograph collectors, but some of their eyes say nobody home, or else they say not only is there nobody home, the house is haunted. And there's this one guy, I signed an autograph for him, and he had a Polaroid, and he gave it to some guy, and I got my picture taken with him. I said, really, I got to run. He said, will you just sign it? Will you just sign it? He gives me this pen that's, you know, the kind that writes on Polaroids, because mostly they're beat up. It was Mark David Chapman, the guy who shot John Lennon, and he was also a big fan.
Oh my gosh.
And he was a big Lennon fan, so.
Oh my. Yeah.
I can't do any kind of a promotion thing if I sit in Bangor, because not Mr. King Suite. Because not everybody will come to me, you know, on a series of monitors, and I think that I would want to live like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Stephen, we're sitting here getting acquainted a little bit.
Getting to know each other, yeah.
Yes, as they say. And we were talking, I find it very interesting that a man who scares other people with his books and his novels and short stories and all has some things that he's afraid of.
I got a lot of things I'm afraid of.
Like what?
Well, I'm a little Charlie Brown inside. You know, I am full of fears. We were talking about fear of flying. I don't like to fly. I can, you know, people will say to me, it's wonderful to have a great imagination. And it is wonderful in a way. We have 2 Mercedes cars in the driveway, and the shoes have kids. The shoes have kids on their feet. Good. I've been on tour too long. The kids have shoes on their feet, and we have security. But it works the other way too. Not only do you know all the things that can go wrong, you can imagine them going wrong. You know, you can think of whatever's going on inside those turbines and how hot they're getting, and you can actually see those bearings freezing. And at 30,000 feet, those are maybe things you don't want to think about, but somehow your mind turns back to them. I have never yet got into an elevator that was full of people in a really tall building where I didn't wonder how the brake shoes were on that Otis cage at the top and how greasy those cables were getting. You can see the strands popping off one by one in your mind's eye. So it's nice to have an imagination, and it's nice to be able to use it and to do what you like, but every now and then it turns around and bites you. And besides, I do have that Charlie Brown side to me, so that when somebody comes to the house and they look a little sad or down at the mouth, I don't say, is anything wrong? I say, how bad is it? You know? I guess that's why I write the kind of stories I write. It's a way of warding off the bad things.
How frightened were you about directing this movie?
Scared to death. It took 3 weeks before I realized that I was doing it the wrong way, because I was not doing it the way that I'd written all my novels, which is pretty much by instinct, by guts and by gosh. My motto has always been, people will say, do you outline? And my idea is if you can't remember what your idea was, it was a bad idea. You know, it's just as well that you forgot it. And I went into it with something in mind that I'd read Alfred Hitchcock had said. He said that the dullest part of making any movie was the actual shooting, because he knew everything that he was going to do. He'd planned it all in advance. And as a guy who'd never done it before and knew that there was going to be a crew of, let's say, 80 people who had probably made, you know, the grips on the picture would have made more movies, worked on more movies than I'd ever made in my life. It's obvious that I didn't get the job because I'd made brilliant student films at Berkeley Film School or NYU Film School. I never went to film school. I didn't get a shot at directing because I'd done brilliant TV the way that Steven Spielberg did when he made Sugarland Express. I got the job because I was Stephen King. I think Dino De Laurentiis probably had 2 reasons for that. One of them is that he's sort of a magnificent gambler at heart. He's the last of the true entrepreneurs. He will roll the dice. And he thinks to himself, well, Stephen King has written a lot of books that have enough cinematic appeal so they've been bought for films. Maybe he can do it. And I also think that there was a canny side where he thought maybe the book buyers will come back into the theaters where they really haven't been since The Shining, and maybe there'll be a certain freakish curiosity value. You know, Samuel Johnson said about women preachers and dancing dogs, you don't come expecting to see it done well. You come because you're so surprised that anybody does it at all, you know. So there's that side of it. But I had everything planned out, and for 3 weeks we just kind of filled in the blanks. And then when I discovered that I really could trust my actors, that they would give me more than I ever thought, I went in with standard preconceptions. Actors spend half of their times looking in the mirror and the other half calling their agents on the West Coast and telling them how awful this is and they can't possibly do this. And they're not like that at all. And I started to loosen up, and I started to go the way that I go with the books, and to, you know, bop with it a little bit, have some fun. And then it started to be a better experience. I stopped being afraid of it then. I had to work hard. And there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. And you have to walk a line between the reason, remembering why you came in the first place, and realizing that it's all right to listen to somebody and say, okay, I didn't understand. We'll do it this way.
Stephen, now that you see the picture, do you think this is the best Stephen King work transferred to film?
Only in one way. I think that finally the people who write me after every film version and say they ruined it. Well, you can't ruin a book. That's one of the reasons that I've continued to sell to Hollywood, because in spite of the fact that you don't really know what's going to happen. There was a film graduate student who came to interview James M. Cain near the end of Cain's life, and Cain was a guy who had a lot of books turned into films. There was Postman Always Rings Twice, which has been made 2 or 3 times. Double Indemnity, is Mildred Pierce, Serenade, a bunch of them. And this guy started to moan and complain, and then he asked that question that's so much like, are you still beating your wife? He said to Cain, what do you think about the way Hollywood's ruined all your books? And Cain whipped right around, and he pointed to the shelf behind him and said, didn't ruin one of them, Sonny. They're all right up there. You can't ruin a book. A book is film-proof. Film is more ephemeral. So in that sense, it's never really bothered me at all. But I think what the fans mean when they say they ruined your book is that whatever that heart is, or the feeling of the writer that's between the lines almost, you know, that makes the heart of the book, wasn't in the film. And this time it's there. This film is vulgar in places. It's very frightening in places.
Is it grisly?
There are places where it's a bit grisly. There are places where the critics are going to say Stephen King continues to practice the gospel of nothing succeeds like excess. But at the same time, there's enough of the heart that there's enough, I think, of the sort of good humor and sort of straight-ahead drive that the stories have, so that I think people are going to come out of it and say, yeah, it was great. It is the best. In terms of technique and in terms of all the rest of it, probably not. You know, it's like when people say, would you do it again? The answer is, I might. I mean, it's like all of a sudden you're not a virgin anymore, and you think, well, all right, that's taken care of, but I think that if I could do this again, I could improve my technique, you know. And I think that I see some of the things that I did wrong. They're the things you'd like to have back, not necessarily lines you'd like to change, but things you didn't know about. That I could go back and probably do a better job the second time, and I'd loosen up to start with, which would be great.
Stephen, the theme of this movie, Maximum Overdrive, which is machines taking over the world and destroying the world and people and so forth, is there some message there that you're trying to convey to us?
Well,
has technology gone too far?
I don't know how to answer that question. I think this is a moron movie, okay? I think that, and I mean that in the best sense of that term. I think Splash was a moron movie. Nobody believes in mermaids. Come on, give me a break. But it was a great movie. There should be movies where you can sort of check your brains at the box office and pick them up 2 hours later. And yet, there are also moron movies, which are what I think of as perfect entertainment pictures, you know, where they hit that sublime note of idiocy that can be mistaken for social satire. I remember reading a long piece in the Village Voice about Dawn of the Dead, saying George Romero has created the perfect satire of the consumer society, where people finally end up eating each other. And George just read that and laughed and said, gee, I thought it was a horror picture, you know. But every movie of this sort is a dream. Fantasies are dreams, and horror movies or suspense movies are nightmares. And this is about technology out of control. And I think technology is out of control on a large scale. You know, I'm crazed on the subject of nuclear reactors and nuclear waste and nuclear core rods and all that business. But on a more mundane level, I'm certain every time the bread gets stuck in the toaster, that toaster is just saying, come on, stick a fork down here. Go ahead. I won't shock you. And then, of course, you stick the fork down there to get the bread out and zap. Got you again. They don't work, or else they seem absolutely malign. You have a camera guy who had to change a couple of different plugs to get sound. It happens all the time. You know.
The demons, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen,
And besides, you know, it's just this kind of childish urge that you get sometimes to, you know, just whip something out like that. And, you know, it's foolish, really, but there's something about it where, like that. And it's kind of mean and everything, but, you know, I carry this little bugger around with me, and I've scared more people with him. You know, you could just, I went down like this in an elevator in New York City, and you know, in New York, they just kind of, oh, guy's got a rubber spider on his shirt. Okay, next case. You know. Did I get you at all?
Yes,
Nah,
because I
didn't.
thought you were reaching for cigarettes.
Oh,
Okay.
what a good time.
What a good note to end on. What I'm saying to you is, Stephen King, you're finished.
Yes. You'll never work in Dallas again.
I enjoyed it very much. Look forward to the film, and perhaps we'll have a chance to talk with you again sometime. I certainly
That'd
hope
be
so.
nice. That'd be nice. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
about the spider.
It's
But
okay.
not very. I really am not. That's the worst part.
That was marvelous.
I mean, it doesn't really photograph well close up. It's not exactly.
You're wanting to shake it
I
like
did
you
this-
was.
I did this
Hold
on-
it the same way you were, Stephen.
Like this?
Is that the way he was holding it?
Continuity. Where's the continuity, girl?
Yes, yes. Or did you have it on top?
See, I had it kind of like this.
Right. No, you had it up more. You were shimmering it or
Yeah,
whatever.
you got to, or else it doesn't look real. You just gotta. It doesn't really look real anyway.
No, it doesn't.
Except
it was just
it
that.
really is. I did this on take 2 yesterday, but we did it live, and it was this husband and wife team, and I mean, I did not intend to do it. It was not planned, and nobody coerced me like somebody did today. But no,
Do you
she
always
won't
carry
mind,
it
she
in your
won't
shirt
mind.
pocket?
I don't leave home without it. It's like my American. No, actually, somebody pulled it on me in New York, and I said, "Can I have that?" And I did not premeditate it. I just pulled it out, and I said, "Lois, I want to give this to you." And she went 9 feet into the air, and everybody on the crew just laughed.
Regardless of what it was, if somebody comes suddenly at me toward my face, I recoil.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, that's just a reflex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it does get in your mind. Those people are crazy about what it is. They are. They are. In all cases, overworking in the day, except for a few people. My daughter is she's interested in she's acting a little bit, but she's so weird. All I can think of is the Wizard of Oz and the Wicked Witch of East, and that's why Dorothy is in there. Dorothy told her. She was like almost blue. She was eating. She just broke her leg. She's very nice to me.
Studios.
To you. And I would keep backing away. I don't want people that close in my face. I said to him one time, if you're not going to kiss me, back off, you know. I mean, anybody who gets that close to me, you know, that's the only reason they're going to be that close to me. Well, even my dentist doesn't get that close.
Where is reaction? Now I can see the table, the cord. On
Reactions first or questions?
We're rolling.
Okay, questions first? Okay.
Well, either one.
Yeah, I'll do questions first, okay. Stephen, your movies and books scare people. What are some of the things that scare you? Stephen, what are some of the things in life that you're afraid of? Is there any particular warning in this film? In other words, has technology gone too far? Do you think then that Maximum Overdrive is the best adaptation of any work? I'll have to do that again.
And also in between, give me a little reaction.
Okay. Okay. Is Maximum Overdrive the best film adaptation of any Stephen King work? Pretty grisly? Okay, now just some reactions.
We're going to put your talent to a real test. We're going to have the spider coming to you.
That should do it.